We're not using right now, in that space, we use a space, kind of like focus on treatment. That's a place to grow back. What chocolate butler? I really have forgotten.
It's like, oh shit.
Is he on his bed? Yeah.
Excellent. Good evening. I would like to call the Committee on Health, Opportunity, Prosperity, and Education to order. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Chairman Juan Machado,
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Shelley Peterson, Councilor Sue Angeball,
Present.
Councilor Justin Boyes is not present. Councilor Miguel Sanchez,
Present.
we have 4 present, 1 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to welcome everyone. Good evening. Today we have before us on the agenda a resolution supporting the memorandum of understanding with the Providence After School Alliance. And then we'll have a discussion relative to the city year program in support of the city of Providence and PPSD. And then for us to have a brief discussion on any thoughts and policies or partnership that we would like to hear from in the near future, and talk a little bit about education and other issues that we see under the committee. So that way we can start looking at some recommendations in the fields of economics, health, education, and social programs. And so with that said, I also want to make a note that our Chief of Staff, June Rose, is with us, along with Aaron,
So noted.
along with Aaron Easton Garner, who's the Deputy Chief of Staff. Also Rosa Arias Perry from City Solicitor. And thank you to the clerks and everybody that's here. So the first item on the agenda we'll have is the resolution supporting the memorandum of understanding with the Providence After School Alliance. Mike, you will be presenting and Durham, who's the Executive Director from PASA.
Yeah, make sure you swear Mike in.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We believe you.
It is customary that we swear in all who come before us.
Raise your right hand. You swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please state your name and title for the record, please.
Deputy Director of Intergovernmental Affairs.
And we're Executive Director of the Providence After School.
Thank you.
If you could please speak up too. One, we'd like to make sure that people can see it online, and then maybe for those of us who are maybe a little bit of hard of hearing. So, welcome, Mike.
Thank you. I'm actually going to turn it right over to Ann. She's the expert on the contract and on what PASA does for the city. So if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn it right over.
Welcome, man.
Thank you. Thank you. A little bit of context for those who are less familiar with PASA. We are a 20-year-old organization. We were founded in 2004 as meant to be an intermediary organization that helps support access to and participation in high-quality out-of-school time learning opportunities. We were designed to live outside of city government and to serve as an intermediary between the city of Providence, Providence Schools, Rhode Island Department of Education, and the large number of really amazing youth serving organizations in the community, with a goal of creating systems and structures to make it easier for those organizations to come in and reach young people without having to deal with all of the logistics and challenges and barriers that can lead to that, and also make it easier for young people to access these really high quality programs at no charge to them. And so that's kind of where PASA has fallen over the last 20 years. Our work has expanded and grown, serve approximately 1,300 Providence students in middle and high school ages every year. And work with, depending on the year, 60 to 70 community organizations that provide direct services to young people in the city. In 2010, the Providence After School Alliance entered into an MOU with the city of Providence that basically laid out the charge that PASA would serve as the city's intermediary for these goals. It does not, the MOU runs on 5-year cycles. It does not in any way guarantee any type of payment or money. It's really about an alignment of vision and opportunity for Providence youth. It sets up ways of collaborating and working together, figuring out how we are going to ensure that there are buildings that are accessible, that can be used for operation of programs, and how we're going to, collaborate and kind of ensure that the operations and the systems behind it. The city doesn't have the staff or the capacity to take on a citywide approach to after school time learning, and that was why it actually was under Mayor Cicilline when it was created, at that time, with the goal of having an organization in the city that could focus on that and work on in collaboration with the city, but outside of city government.
Thank you. Where are you located now?
Our administrative offices are on Valley Street in the Rising Sun Mills.
In the what?
The Rising Sun Mills.
And how many employees do you?
We have 15 full-time employees and approximately 10 part-time employees at this time.
And your current budget?
Is approximately $2.4 million.
Any question? Councilwoman Senator Peterson.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. How are you funded?
Our largest source of funds come from the Rhode Island Department of Education in the form of 21st Century Community Learning Center grants. We have some additional funds from RIDE through All Course Network. We do have a grant with the City of Providence. We have grants with Rhode Island Foundation and a kind of wide number of other local and regional private, family, and corporate foundations. There is independent fundraising, individual giving, all of that fun stuff. And in this fiscal year in particular, we still have some remaining funds from a federal earmark that we received that came through the U.S. Department of Education a couple of years ago, and this will be the last year, fiscal year that we have for those funds as well.
Any further questions? Councilwoman Sue Amado.
We had a joke, I can't pronounce my last name. Can you just share, just
French.
can you share any changes that have been made between this MOU and the last 5 years?
There are
There's
no
not
changes with the exception of some of the final exhibits that list what specific schools exist in PPSB, or like what are the locations of the rec centers in the city, right? Like the list of our staff members, the content of the actual MOU and the agreements, none of that has changed.
Oh, cool, okay,
Yes.
great. And thank you for your amazing work. You do such good.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Councilman Miguel Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's an easy one.
Thank you so much for being here and all the work that you do. Just understanding exactly like the process, like from my understanding, do you guys do any like direct programming yourselves or?
So we oversee program sites. So we have staff who are there managing the logistics and operations of an after-school program at a particular middle school or high school. And so we have staff who are doing direct service in that way, but the vast majority of the program activities that young people are participating in are offered through community partners. And so we will contract with organizations like Community Rep and Save the Bay and One Basketball and Beat the Streets Wrestling. And they are the actual, they're running most of the programs with our staff kind of doing some additional things, on top of that. In our high school programs, for example, we might be, we might be the ones taking students on college tours and college visits, or running a resume building day, or something a little bit more one-off type activities.
Thank you. And in the way you like find those community partners, are you like constantly like searching, or folks like coming to you? Like say like someone wants to teach golf lessons, like can they like come to you and you can try to get them connected?
Yes, so we put out, the funding that's used is most of it is public funds, right, coming from RIDE. And so we put out our request for proposals multiple times a year. And people who are interested in running programs will complete a proposal, submit it, and there's a review process and often a, conversation about the budget and making sure it works. We are always there and available to help with the actual completion of the proposal. We know that these can be arduous and a little overwhelming for people, especially if they've never done it. But in addition, we are constantly going out and seeking new programs. We're constantly saying to people, hey, we have a need for this particular type of program, or young people are asking for this particular content. Does anyone know anything? Does anyone know anybody? And, for example, tomorrow, RISD is hosting their community engagement fair. And we've got a big sign there with a QR code to get in touch with us, because we want more arts providers. And we're wondering, are there any college students who want to run an after-school art program? And so we're always going out and seeking groups and always looking for people to refer others into us as well.
Awesome. Thank you. The only other question I have, has the state takeover impacted the relationships either way of like how you'd have the schools? Like how has the state takeover, if so, impacted the work that your organization has done?
I'd say that it's been minimal in terms of relationships we have. We're fortunate to have the superintendent on our board of directors, the Office of Community Partnerships from, with Providence Schools. We've maintained strong relationships with them. And, when we're embedded in these schools, our staff really aim to be a part of the community. Is every relationship with every, large complex system, sometimes, difficult at moments and easy at other moments. Of course, that's the case, no matter who you're partnering with and who you're working with. Some of the impacts may or may not have been related to the takeover. So, we had been running programs in Gilbert Stewart Middle School and 360 High School. And so we don't have, that impacted, the students who we were working with, but we're fortunate that many of those students are at other schools now where we still are, like JSAC and many of the other middle schools. And so our goal as an organization, what we were created to be, was an independent group that is able to negotiate all of these complex relationships and make it easier on the smaller nonprofits, easier on the families. And we really see our role as that true intermediary, right? We don't take sides on, any of the many complex issues that come out. Our goal is to say, how do we ensure that we continue to have high quality after school programs for our students in these spaces? And our job, really, like why we were created, is to work through the complexity. And so we're there for that, and we're going to continue to be there for that.
It's awesome. Thank you. Actually I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, did you guys switch to like remote programming during the pandemic, or what did you guys do in that time?
There's a little bit of everything. So when the pandemic first hit, I'd say in like the spring of 2020, we weren't necessarily doing remote programming, but we were doing some kind of like, sometimes like group, just like video chats and check-ins. And instead we were actually really focused on basic needs, working to ensure that families had food, that students had Chromebooks, that, especially, after the large distribution sites for food were set up, but then if a member of the household had COVID, they couldn't go get the food. And what were we doing to help support in those ways? That summer, we worked with the Providence Community Libraries and we set up outdoor kind of distance, but in-person, hands-on opportunities that were drop-ins for young people, because adolescents, like, we can't just be at home at their time. And so it was a great partnership with the community libraries of just setting up these tents in the parking lots, and having opportunities for young people to drop by. And then we had a great opportunity to work with the rec department in the fall of 2020, and similarly ran programs outdoors at the rec department sites until we couldn't any longer, until it got too dark and too cold to run those outdoor programs. And that's when we switched virtually. And then kind of, as we were getting ready to come back in person, the summer of 21, we ran a large outdoor summer camp that was based at Roger Williams Park, erected a huge tent behind the History Museum, and the entire camp was based out of the park and taking advantage of all of that. And then by the fall of 21, we were able to re-enter the schools and in person again.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. I have a couple of questions. One is that, in terms of, the partnerships, do you have any additional partnerships that, supplement your budgets, over time besides the school and RIDE?
Well, so I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking, but
Any other resources?
oh, yes, I mean, definitely.
That's
So,
important.
so one example is to understand, the After Zone site at Roger Williams Middle School. That 21st Century grant is actually held by the Boys and Girls Club of Providence. And we have a partnership agreement with them to help support the data, the quality, the management of the site, the busing, the contracting, the program providers. And we engage in partnership with them. And, so while they are the grant holders and it is their staff who are overseeing the site, we are working in partnership with them, and obviously we are built into their budget for that. And then I think there's, just as I had mentioned earlier, a lot of work on applying for grants and engaging in grant projects. We've been really fortunate to have a number of kind of pilot projects and other innovative work that's been happening nationally that we've been connected to a lot of our partners on the national level, be able to bring in grant projects for us and grant funds for us in those ways.
The other question in reference to, do you provide a yearly report? And is it placed on the website, or use technology to enhance the experience with partnerships?
That is an area that is been built into our brand new strategic plan of growth for this year, and we actually have been building out that capacity. We had not had a communications or development professional on staff for quite a while, and that position's now been filled, and that's a piece that we are growing this year with a very intentional kind of build out of that, so as not to overwhelm our people. But yes, we're communications is an area that we're always looking to improve and get better at, and have some key things in place to continue to grow it. I mean, I'd say that it's not that we haven't had any communication, I personally feel we can be better at it.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I ask, I try to go on the websites and just look at some of the reports and so forth, but I think it's room for improvement there. Then the other question is, the agreement that we're seeking is for, is it 10 years?
It's 5 years.
5 years. 5 years, and essentially is that you still have to carry a insurance policy that covers
Yes.
your.
Absolutely, yes. The city is named as additional insured, the school district is named as additional insured, but we can carry our own as an independent organization, we have our own.
That is up to what, 2 million?
Yes.
2 million. And so I wanted to just clarify on that. And then, the date, Mike, I know that the contract says October 1st, 2024. Is that gonna be, as of January, or how does that work?
Section 12, page 3, the amendment needs to be effective as of October 1st, 2024, pending approval from council.
So we just go retroactive.
Yeah.
That would take that. And then there's a smaller. Just corrections on some of section. The first whereas, at the end it says the parties. The parties seek to enter into. The first whereas on the contract.
Before and now therefore.
Just- I think it's another section, but just so the committee can. Can at least, consider it and passing it with just those minor technical graphical changes, and modifications. No. Any further questions? Councilwoman Miguel Sanchez.
Thank you,
Councilwoman Chair, please.
So say like a soccer team wants to, or like a soccer academy wants to program something in a school and they come to you. A school official says like that's not allowed in the gym, like where do you guys go from there?
Gym space is always a fun, especially in winter, when you've got a lot of school sports happening, and so it's always a matter of balancing and working with the schools and figuring out how we work in partnership. We have never been in a situation where we've never had any access to gyms. Are there times where it's a little bit more limited, of course, and so that's when we seek out other opportunities. So for example, there was we've been running a basketball program at JSAC this fall, and there wasn't any gym space. But there's public outdoor courts right outside the building, and so we've been using that. We've had times when we've been engaging with the JCC or the YMCA or other groups to be able to access their space. I'm not gonna lie, gym space in particular is at a premium, and it is one of our bigger challenges, but that is, just one of the pieces that we're there to try to figure out and work through and always try to make it work as much as we can.
Thank you. Yeah, just for the record, that's like a big complaint that I'm hearing right now in the community is soccer teams can't access PPSD gyms at all. So we want to try to work through those challenges and definitely continue those conversations while all this school construction is happening to ensure that any new gyms are accessible and made for indoor soccer and other activities.
Thank you. Councilwoman Peterson.
This is a personal point of reflection. I think that we have a lot of large academic institutions in this community that have very big, beautiful spaces that they should be utilizing to support the community. So I would make a strong recommendation to go out and ask our higher ed institutions to say, hey, would you be willing to? Just because it's part of their community contributions to this community. And they, in my opinion, should be putting that best foot forward to help our students and our constituents and the programs that we bring in. So just a suggestion. My question is, I forgot my question. I remember. The programming that you do, is it mostly extracurricular or is there academics involved, or is there like a hybrid? How does it work? Is there mentorship?
It's a hybrid, so we kind of classify everything under art, sports, and skills. And skills can be broken out into STEM and then all other skills. And it really depends on the particular program. We really believe in the importance of enrichment for enrichment's sake, right? And all of the amazing skills that can be built through a basketball program, through, a jewelry making program and all of those elements. But then we definitely are always seeking out programs and engaging with programs that are going to support academic engagement, passion for learning and growth in those areas. And so I think especially we have certain programs where we are going to intentionally build that in. So for example, the state's Learn 365 grants, we've been partnering with the city of Providence to develop after-school programs where we're gonna have teachers collaboratively teaching with community-based organizations and delivering those programs together, so they're getting the best of what the community organization has to offer, and those academic standards built into it, and making it hands-on learning all incorporated. And then there's other elements, where we have programs, we have tutoring programs, or we have, for example, at JSEC, there's the HOSA program, which is for students who are interested in health professions and moving forward towards a health career in the future. So it's always a blend and a mix.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Just two questions. How long is the process for a partner to come in and work with you to access the facilities and our school district? How long is that?
So
take?
we'll open an RFP for, say, fall-based programs as early as June, and that is in part because we want to catch the teachers before they leave for the summer and are maybe not paying attention to their email. And that RFP will close in July with a goal of finishing contracting and negotiations in August, so that we're ready to start recruiting in September. And then fall programs will start usually the last week of September, the first week of October, and that always kind of depends on the school calendar that year and when all the fall holiday days off are going to occur. And then, but at the same time, people can apply for even later in the year at that moment. If they want to fill out the RFP in the summer, but they actually don't want to run a program until winter or spring, but they already know they want to submit it, they could do it at that time. We also reopen the RFP, it's open right now for winter and spring programs. And so that will be the kind of the last round for this academic year. But it always varies, right? We have people who are very new to this and want time to work with us because they have an inkling of what they want to do, but they don't necessarily know exactly what the program should look like, and they are looking for support with us to actually help them develop it and figure out what that looks like and help them, identify the best program model that our young people might want. That might take a little bit longer because they're looking for a little bit more support in that process. And for others, it can actually be incredibly quick, right? If we have a teacher who comes to us in one of our buildings and says like, hey, didn't know about the RFP last spring because I'm brand new to the building, but I have this program I really want to run. We're going to make a way to do that, right? The RFP is always available for them to fill out, and we can turn that around really quickly as long as we have the space in the schedule and the funds and all of the resources available.
So within 60 days, 30 days?
For something
those
that
scenarios
quick, yeah.
Smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quicker
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
So it's just any smaller organizations can reach out to you
Yes.
and try to see how they can fit in.
Exactly, and we'll walk them through the process of everything that has to be done, right, all the insurance that they have to have in place, all of the background checks that we need to have, all of the PBSD required sign-offs and releases that have to be signed, and so some of them are ready right away, but their insurance meets the requirements, their staff already has their background checks on file, right, because of some of the other work that they're doing. For others, that might take a little longer, but we're gonna support them through that process and make sure that they can get that done in a timely way.
And how is that advertised? Through your website or?
We put it out
Newspaper?
through email blasts on our social media, at the schools. We rely really heavily, not only on flyers on the wall, but word of mouth, and really talking to all of the all of the faculty and staff at the building. And then among our community partners, we're always kind of saying as well, who do you know that we don't know, who might not have seen this that you think should come here? And we're often being sent emails saying, hey, just wanted to introduce you to this other organization or this new individual. They're looking to engage, and we'll start the process immediately with them.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much for that insightful presentation about PASA, because I didn't know a whole lot, and I'm sure my colleagues did. We look forward to seeing how we can be supportive in a way that we can support our students, especially during the summer months. So, I'll entertain a motion. Motion to accept the contract for 5 years with PASA. It has been moved by Councilwoman Shelley Peterson, second by Councilwoman Sue Andujar and Miguel Sanchez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mike.
Thank you so much.
Next on, before us is the discussion relative to city year programming in support of the city of Providence and PTSD. We welcome our colleague, who is the executive director, and her staff. Welcome,
Thank you.
Nora.
Hello,
That's right.
Chair. How are you?
Good to see you. Welcome. And as customary, we're going to swear you in too.
Okay, and this is Kevin Tucker, who is our impact director, and he oversees our impact team that are in the schools serving students. And it's the team of our AmeriCorps members who
Thank
serve
you.
as student success coaches.
Sure. If you could just,
Both raise your right hand for me, please. You swear on the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And just please restate your name and title for me for the record.
Kevin Tucker, Impact Director, City of Providence.
And Mira Fortune, executive directors, City of Providence.
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. So I'll ask to enter these items into the record. I also sent an email, but just impact report from our last year, just providing an overview of City Year of Providence. And just some information regarding our impact in the last 31 years, so 31 years serving in the city of Providence.
I remember when it was.
Thank you.
Thank you. A motion to enter item number 1 into the record, the report for city year. Moved by Councilwoman Sue Andujar and seconded by Councilwoman Shelley Peterson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay.
So thank you so much for having us here today to talk about City of Providence, and the over 31 years of impact that we have had in the state of Rhode Island, primarily in the City of Providence. So City Year actually is the original service organization in the country. In fact, City Year used to be seen as the Urban Peace Corps, and it was City Year that inspired the development of the AmeriCorps program that now exists. And so now City Year falls under the AmeriCorps umbrella. And so City Year Providence, formerly known as City Year Rhode Island, was the second site after City Year Boston was established in 1988. We were established in 1993. And since we have served various parts of the state, where our core members back in the day used to be in their red jackets and their Timberland boots, doing calisthenics in Kennedy Plaza, doing community-oriented work, serving our local community. While my time at City Year has been 1 year, and this month will be 8 months, 1 year, 8 months. But my relationship to City Year actually started almost 30 years ago when City Year started their Young Heroes program in 1995. So I was part of the first cohort of Young Heroes when I was a student at Nathaniel Green Middle School. And during that time, it was quite transformative for me to not only be connected to an organization and where I had a near-to-peer mentor, where a core member, and core members who came from diverse backgrounds, and many of them who looked like me, who came from my community, were serving, but it was also an introduction to civic engagement and also showing me as a young person the power that I have to change the communities that I live in, while also meeting people from different backgrounds and engaging with them. And so who would have thought back then, a young immigrant kid who was undocumented during that time, that would have been the catalyst of my personal and professional trajectory that has landed me here today. And so the work that we have done in City Year, we have evolved since. So after No Child Left Behind was passed, City Year realized in order for us to truly move towards a more equitable society, we need to prioritize education. And so that's why City Year developed the whole school, whole child framework, where now our core members who serve as student success coaches go into schools, supporting students in classrooms, through, tutoring, individual as well as small group tutoring, as well as providing instructional support, and focusing on three critical areas, the ABCs. Attendance, ensuring that students, are coming to school. Behavior or belonging, ensuring that we are able to provide, our students, the students that we're serving with skills to develop social emotional skills and learning, as well as coursework, the academics, and the focus is math and ELA. Last year alone, we served close to 3,000 students in the 5 schools that we serve. We're currently serving at, a semester elementary school, Leventon Dual Language School, Bailey Elementary, Pleasant View, as well as Youngwoods, elementary schools. And so we have teams of core members who start, at 7:30 a.m. And if you look in your packet, you'll see a little, a sheet that kind of illustrates a day in life of the City of AmeriCorps member. And so our core members arrive, are the first ones to arrive, and usually the last ones to leave. And so, they greet students, during, drop off. They're also there in some of our schools providing, some supplemental, before school or out of classroom tutoring. And then they also support students, after school. A question came up earlier, during the pandemic, if, that, PASA was, engaged with students. City Year actually continued providing, services throughout the whole course of the pandemic, providing the same type of services that we provided. And when schools, were open, City Year was the only organization, in our community, and I might say in the state, that was allowed to go into the schools to continue to serve, students. Our core members, many of them, the reason that they're serving is because they were served by a City Year AmeriCorps. We've seen an influx of young people who are recent high school graduates who are now serving in the classrooms. And the impact that it has, not only on the students that we're serving, but also the young people who are serving, is quite profound. Many of our core members, who come in sometimes are not sure of what they want to do. They're trying to figure out their pathway. And through our programming, our core members for a whole year, they receive learning and development opportunities where they're cultivating leadership skills that will prepare them for the workforce, or leadership, as we call it, after City Year. Last year, Kevin was instrumental with the impact team to partner, with some key stakeholders, and many of our core members were able to get scholarships, to pursue their education. City Year has been a driver in, building capacity within the education, pipeline. And most importantly, City Year plays a critical role in the economic development of our state. One of the things we often talk about is the brain drain that happens, right? I know when I graduated from high school, the first thing that I wanted to do was leave, Providence, and I said that I would never come back, but here I am, like many of us, we will come back. But one of the things that City Year has the ability to do is, one, for core members who are from the state of Rhode Island, from our Providence communities who are serving, we give them a reason, an added value, a value proposition to want to stay, in our communities. And then for those that are recruited from out of state, they actually, they continue to serve, and they live and they contribute to the local community. And I'll let Kevin speak a bit, because not only, is Kevin our impact, director, but Kevin is actually a City Year alum, who moved here to Providence, to work at City Year, but has had over 15 years experience, with City Year.
Yeah, so I think, Neil really spoke to the heart of what the work tends to look like, but, yeah, I did do City Year, in 2009, in Louisiana. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I transplanted to Rhode Island with my wife, who's from Cumberland, and so I find myself living in Rhode Island now. And liking it more than I thought I was going to when we first decided where we're going to live. We're in Louisiana, where do we go next? We're like, Rhode Island, and I was like, gave me 50 guesses. I don't know that was a state that I was going to pull it, but really enjoy, I've really come to enjoy my time here. And I think when I think about what we're able to do with City and what our core members are able to do, they really are just truly embedded in the majority of the schools that we work in. So when you think about walking into a classroom, more often than not in our schools, or where there's a core member, you will see core members in small groups working with young people, with our students, providing tutoring. You'll be in a school, you'll see a core member with a small group of students outside the classroom, talking about social emotional skills and trying to build those things up as well. And so we really try to support students at multiple parts of their path that sort of can sometimes get in the way of education. So we want to try to do what we can in our capacity to support. Now, again, we're a support system. We come in where, you know, we try to be as respectful as possible. As we continue to work in schools, we know that our core members receive training over the course of the month of August, and then we usually provide somewhere between 8 to 11 additional full days of training, as well as training that they get from their schools in terms of like professional development. But we also know with that, we want to work with our partner teachers. And so each core member has a teacher that they work with, they meet with consistently. They go to common planning times in many of our schools, and they really will support that whole class space, but also in some of our schools where there are intervention spaces, core members have small groups of students that they work with. And so we spend a lot of time training our core members to really be strong practitioners in the work. Now, I would not say that they are experts, but they are very, very competent in their ability to support students. We work primarily in 3rd through 5th grade. And so our focuses are really on sort of some of those baseline skills and helping to make sure that the students are in a good space. The data shows that like when the student is on track by 10th grade, they're more likely to graduate on time. Excuse me, 8th grade, they're more likely to graduate on time. So we want to make sure we do our part, which is I think why we transition to focusing primarily on supporting 3rd through 5th grade students here in Providence.
And some of our outcome data just from last year, which will also is illustrated in the document, but 75% of the students on our focus list that we served last year saw growth in math. 79% saw growth in ELA, which is actually higher than the district average. I mentioned earlier that 3 out of the 5 schools in which we're serving in actually were recognized as some of the schools that see significant growth in both math and ELA on the RACCAS scores, including a semester, which is one of the schools that saw some of the highest growth in the state. And I will say the administrators have also shared with us that City Year was instrumental in helping them do that, but also encouraging students to come to school. There's something really special, and I've seen it, I've witnessed it myself, and I would encourage you, and we will reach out to invite you all to do some site visits with us. But when the students are in the class and they see a core member in their red jacket or in their, City Year uniform, there's an excitement that happens. One, they see someone that is, not too old, but not too young, kind of in the middle, and then that can relate to them. And what's also special is when you hear core members, I think about Allie, who's serving at A Semester Elementary School. Allie went to A Semester. So there's this bond, that this core member has. Marcos is now serving and is, and both Allie and Marcos are both Providence Public School graduates. And the reason why they're not here today is because their day starts at 7:30 a.m. and they need to be on time to greet students in the morning, so we don't want to disrupt that. It's also late, they take public transportation as well. But Marcos is serving this year at Pleasant View. And when Marcos walked in and some of his teachers who taught him and saw that he was serving and has this leadership role, the excitement, the joy, the hugs. And so that is what is transformative. But also seeing how core members are able to remember all the students' names, not just the students who are in the classroom, but they're serving, but even students that they engage with through after-school programs, through family engagement opportunities. And so these are other spaces that we also help build capacity. So last year alone, our core members they supported over 45 after-school programs or initiative or family engagement initiatives that included academic nights, back to school night, trunk or treat, which our core members dress up. One of the things that we also do is leverage some of our corporate sponsors to support initiatives within schools every year. We have a day of joy. Last year, we were able to do it at 2 schools, Lebanon, as well as a semester, which Hasbro comes in. And one of the things that I worked with them on is to bring in games that can contribute to their learning, because they have a whole play and learn initiative. And also to ensure that some of the volunteers, the engineers, the designers, also are multilingual to meet our students' needs. And so not only were students able to engage and have a day of joy when they were having fun learning, and teachers also loved that, but also the students got to see career pathways in which they can pursue as well. We've supported after-school programs at Bailey with the YMCA program. We've partnered with the rec center, Providence Rec Center, where at Pleasant View, our core members are serving after school. At Lebanon Dual Language, our core members were running after school, academic after school programs twice a week, amongst other initiatives. And so what we recognize is that in order for us to be a part of the to be embedded in the student success formula, it takes collaboration. But most importantly, our students, the whole student, whole school has to be at the center. And so what we do is high impact student support and tutoring. And it's driven our impact, and the results of this impact, is driven by data. Some of the our framework was studied by Johns Hopkins. Our model is one that no other organization has, and the type of service that we're able to deliver in the capacity is one that has not been replicated anywhere else. So City Year is unique in that sense. Now, the challenge, as I close, is that we understand that our shifting educational landscape and the underfunding of schools has had a dire impact on City Year. Currently this year, we found out 2 weeks before the start of the school year, our core members were already here because we do like a solid month of just intense training before we even deploy them into the schools. And as Kevin said, throughout the course of the year, they have continuous training. But 2 weeks before the start of the school year, we found out that the district did not have any funding. And as you all know, the budget is usually voted on before, at the end of that fiscal year for the upcoming fiscal year. Sometimes it goes a little over, but but the method. And so with that said, we're actually serving right now. We decided that our commitment is to the students and to the families of Providence. So we would continue to serve. However, it's not sustainable. Additionally, the way our AmeriCorps funding, so City Year, the way the funding works, which is also, there's a document, is listed in the document that I provided, is technically should be a third, but it's not. 52%, it comes from foundational and fundraising funds. So the burden is on us. About 25% comes from the state as well as federal government. In order for us to receive our AmeriCorps funds, we have to have that district partnership. It's a 1-to-1. So they have to match it. So right now, without receiving that funding from the district, we are at risk of losing our AmeriCorps funding. The capacity that we provide from the schools is that we're providing a core member or a team of core members that serve full-time. There is no fringe that the district pays. We provide full insurance for our core members. They receive a stipend, and the stipend that they receive bi-weekly before taxes is about $920. After taxes is about $700 something. You need about $40,000 per year just to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Barely could afford a 2-bedroom apartment in the city of Providence. So our core members are cost burden. That's why we ensure that we provide each of them with a bus pass. That's about $15,000 out of our budget. There's no discounts that we receive. In addition to that, we're the ones who we cover the cost of all the training and development of our core members. All the supplies that we bring in the schools, we don't utilize any school supply. We provide that from the papers that we use, the support, tools that we use, all of that is provided by City Year. And so there's a lot of work. The cost is high. However, the savings that the district sees, the city sees is quite significant. And Deloitte actually did a study and they found that it's the districts that work with City Year, it's a 78% cost saving formula. Because if you think about what you're not paying for health insurance, we cover that. All our core members receive full health insurance. You're not paying for fridge. We cover all the background checks in addition to the additional resources that we provide internally to ensure that our core members get, the resources that they need. And so it's truly a unique service that we're providing, but it's also can be a very strong partnership if we are able to get the funding that we need to continue this work and to really change our educational landscape and create thriving communities for all students and young people.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see why you're so passionate. One, because you're a product of City Year,
I get it.
and it's been a while. 31 years. As I recall, being active as a member in the community when Matt Brown and the community was launched this City Year. It was a change maker, and it continues. And we're proud to have you in our capital city. And to know that you were one of the first cohort. I may have you.
Of Young Heroes.
Yeah, the one Young Heroes. It is a tremendous effort because throughout our lives we see these young people that at that time we will tell them, you are the future, and now they are and have been city council person, or they're giving back to the community, and so we're very proud of that. To see and also to become a model for other states and other districts. So thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions for you, and I know that today, this is for our committee, these are the kind of presentations that we get to hear from organizations and see. And my goal is to try to also, and our goal should be also to try to see if we get national organizations to come and present to us and see how we can provide value to our school district. As has been said, we've been facing the economic challenges in our city, but that doesn't preclude us from seeking other venues and other entities to partner with us, especially even those who fund organizations such as City Year. Question is, you guys still do the steps and the cheering in the beginning? Because that was what really brought people out, and I can recall that. And I think that not just only the red jackets, but it was just like back in the 90s, it was a very tough, challenging time in the city of Providence. We were dealing with a lot of drugs in the city schools, the formation of gangs. And so a lot of young kids, you hear them. I was at the Community College of Rhode Island, and now in the community, you hear some of the young kids saying, I want one of those red jackets. They didn't know what it was, but I remember those kind of things made a community. And that's one of the questions. And then two, I know that for us, and thank you for reaching out this year, the finance committee and all of us heard the needs, and I know that we provided some funding to not the whole to fill the gap, but perhaps some of the members could speak in finance that could speak a little bit about that. So my question to you is, in the for your organization, what is your budget currently? And then also, what does the state provide to within that budget?
Yeah. So our current budget is approximately $3 million. When you think about the number of core members that are serving the funds, well, the stipend, their salaries, as well as our staff salaries, also the benefits that are provided, and just our operational costs. In terms of what the state provides approximately $130,000. So when we share the model and what that model should look like, City of Providence, actually, out of all of the sites, is one of the city or sites where there isn't as much investment from our local government. When you look at other city or sites that are really impactful, like the city or sites in California, so California has 3 city or sites. LA, Sacramento, San Jose, right? And so the state has actually has made significant investments, as well as those local municipalities in the city or sites. City of Boston, this past year, because of the shifting economic landscape, we rely on AmeriCorps funds, and luckily for us, we are separate from the state AmeriCorps grant. Which is good because we don't have to compete with every single program, but then again, we do because the allocations go into one pool, it's not separated. However, when Boston, something happened, there were a couple of sites where their AmeriCorps funds weren't allocated, the state and the municipalities came through. Some of my concerns is that if that were to happen to Citier, given the circumstances, would the city and the state come through for us? And what we've seen these past few years is that our funding is generally cut. When I started in May 2023, we found out 3 days before the start of the close, 3 days before the fiscal year closed, that our funds would be cut by 50%. And that was disheartening, considering myself and David Salvatore was the primary sponsors to ensure, because we saw the value of Citier, to ensure that Citier received the funding that it was getting, which in comparison to other places is quite minimal. Citier Philadelphia their city invested $1 million in Citier. The work that we're doing is we're supporting, our schools, we're supporting our whole students. And we also provide evidence. It's demonstrated in the data that our work is quite impactful. We're seeing growth. I just shared 3 out of the 5 sites that we're working in saw growth this past year. One, it was our first year, 2 of them actually, Leviton and A Semester. Were 2 schools that we just started working with, and we saw significant growth. In addition to that, some of the investments we've made, Kevin and his team, they just instituted a training for our core members, multilingual, to effectively support multilingual learners. Because we understand that we have a high percentage of students where English is not their primary language. In addition to that, we made some cuts within our city or site. We went from a staff size of about 16, 17 to now down to 11. And so that's to ensure that we close our fiscal year last year with a positive NOI without even tapping into our reserves, which was the first time that we were able to do that in the past 10 years. And we're quite proud of that. However, if we continue to function the way that we're functioning without support from the city, without the necessary support from the district, what does that mean for City of Providence? We've already been called by other districts and other charter schools, because we also have City alums who are serving as teachers, as administrators in some of the charter schools in our states and some other districts. But our primary focus has always been Providence as the largest district in the state of Rhode Island with significant needs. But we also have to think about diversifying our portfolio if we want to be sustainable in our community.
Thank you. Question? Councilwoman Miguel Sanchez.
Hi, Nora, how are you?
I'm well.
Thank you so much for being here in front of us, and more importantly, for this role that you're serving in. How many AmeriCorps members do you guys currently have?
Yeah, so we started the year off with 38 core members, and we're looking to bring in an additional, right now, I think we're slated at an additional 7 to start in January.
Is that how it usually functions? Like you start with a certain and then kind of add, or?
Yeah, so we have like a start of year where most people sort of join, and then we do a mid-year recruitment, which is usually sort of targeted at people who are graduating college, sort of in that first semester, and are looking for things to do as well. So I'm really trying to figure out different ways to bring in people to support young students.
And, go ahead.
I was just gonna add, so the way our program functions is that core members have to serve a certain amount of hours. So 1,700 hours would be one full year. One of the things that we're implementing to provide a little bit more flexibility is a 1,200 hour service year. Cause it's a lot to be in the school from 7:30 a.m. to sometimes 6 p.m. And if there's an after school initiative, our core members are there until like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And then we have 900 hours, which is mid-year. So 1,700 hours is from August to June, 900 hours is from January to June. And so that's how most of the city year sites are structured.
So like the member has like the option to do either or if they, or how to,
Not necessarily the option, so if you start at the beginning of the year, the expectation is that you complete the 1,700. I mean, we let them know that, like, hey, if you start here, this is what's required. If you start in January, it's basically impossible to get to 17, so we let them know, hey, your expectation is to be 9. What we are looking to do, that Mira was pointing out, is next year be able to have this 1,200 as an option, and people could opt in to 1,200 versus 17. So theoretically, they'll have the choice between 1,700, 1,200, and those who start at the mid-year would still be in line to do 900, and that's just in line with what the AmeriCorps hours requirements are. So those are based on what that looks like. So if you go to many AmeriCorps programs, the hours that you'll hear that their volunteers are asked to serve are around 17, 12, and 900 minutes.
right?
Hours, excuse me.
Right. So is that, is the 38 pretty evenly distributed between the 5 schools, or is there certain schools that you're more
So
involved in?
So I think that we have some schools that have more just based on the school's capacity. So we have some schools that we are at that have more 3rd through 5th grade classrooms, so we try to put more core members there. And we have some schools that are a little bit smaller, and so they only have 3 3rd through 5th grade classrooms total, then we aren't in a position to put 6 core members there, 5 core members there. We might only be able to put 3 or 4. So we have some teams that are a little bit smaller, but generally they're all sort of in a relatively similar range.
The only other questions I really have is around funding. What did you not get from the district that you were anticipating this school year?
So it would have been about $500,000. Yeah, 500,000.
And then, so that's what you normally get every year?
So
or-
so it has been inconsistent. Last year actually was the first year, and this is another challenge sometimes, is that, and to be fair, you know, with the capacity of the school district as well, and, you know, they're also short-staffed. We usually get our funding after the fiscal year close. So we are functioning in good faith because it's already allocated funds. And it's coming from, you know, a district partner. We can still apply it. There's all these extra steps that we have to take to be able to apply it to that previous fiscal year. But we are actually doing everything up front before we get those funds in. So last year we got 430,000. In years past, we've gotten a little bit more. So it all depends on the size. One of the things we have proposed to the district was having a team, but the option that they wanted to go forth with was more of a per ACM investment versus a per team investment. And so that's a choice. Every, you know, district.
What's the difference between those two?
So an ACM, so with the ACM investment, you are paying per ACM, right? So the district would invest per ACM with where a team. So let's say with a team, if a team, every team is, let's say 125K, right? That team, if that number goes up, like for instance, mid-year, or we have a little bit more, you're not gonna go, the amount is not gonna go because that's the number of, that's like the per team that we like agreed on, and that's how it is. And so there's not going to be variations in the amount that the district would pay, which a lot of districts actually have adopted that model because it's better for planning. They can determine what they're going to allocate for city or service and what investments they're going to make versus, well, we're not sure, and it is contingent on the size. Our recruitment starts now for next year. And so part of the challenge for next year is we also, like, we can't even bring the number of mid-years that we wanted to bring because we know that we're not, as of right now, we don't have any money that's gonna come from the district. So we're trying to draw down our AmeriCorps funds, but with AmeriCorps funds, it's also quite strict what you can draw down. So, there might be an assumption that there are certain salaries. My salary, we cannot allocate my salary, my development staff, to AmeriCorps funds. The only salaries, and it's not even the full salary, it might be a percentage of it, might be not even Kevin necessarily as our impact director, but our impact manager. So every team also has a impact manager who's a full-time staff, and they're school-based or they're in the schools. These are young people between the ages of 17 and 25. And so we're not just gonna leave them by themselves in the schools. It's really important to have someone who is there, who's mentoring them, who's coaching them. In addition to that, on our staff, we just hired, one of the things with our restructuring that we're doing is for our learning and development person, we wanted someone who had a background in education, a teaching background, as well as coaching, instructional coaching background. So Amy came to us from not Central Falls, Fall River, where she taught at Fall River, which their population of students looks similar to ours, for 7 years. And so has been instrumental in implementing some of the trainings and the coaching to ensure that our core members are effectively applying our service model.
Commissioner
quick one.
Delarose?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
city funding, what does that look like historically? You
So
said-
city funding pre 2023 was 100,000 when we first implemented into it was during the time I was a city council person. I can't remember. I'm getting old. I have one here now. But it was 100,000. Then in 2024, FY24, it was cut down by 50%. So it was 50,000. And then for this current year, what was voted in the city budget was for us to receive $100,000. But what would be ideal is for city year to actually be embedded in the district, not the district, excuse me, the city budget. There should be a line item for city year Providence, considering the work that we're doing in the schools. There's a study when I was in grad school, so my background is in education policy. And one of the things that I forgot to research it, but I could send a follow-up email with this study. But basically what they looked at was different districts throughout the nation. Atlanta was one, Chicago, it wasn't Dallas, but it was a district in Texas and a couple of others. And the ones that were focused on some education initiatives, and the ones that they found were successful, but were the ones that were collaborating with community organizations, and they had a shared vision and a shared goal. And so what we hope that we can be a part of is the city's education agenda. All of the things that are outlined in the turnaround plan, City Year is doing. In fact, that document is what we use in terms of training our core members. Our staff members, like Kevin sits on one of the committees at Young Woods, and the school's improvement plan, because we want to make sure what we're doing and the service that we're delivering aligns with the improvement plans for the schools and also the overall arching district improvement plans to ensure that our students can be successful. And Kevin, you talk a bit about the committee.
Yeah, I think, we actually were, this morning, I was at Young Woods and they have staff meeting where they went over sort of their start of year data, looked at their data from last year and really tried to see like, where are the successes, where are there places and spaces where they're gonna need to sort of like double down their work and provide additional supports. And as I sat and was a part of some of those conversations, it was also, and where are the places that this sort of like our organization can continue to provide additional resources to support. So one of the things that they discussed in the space is like, what would it look like to provide some additional academic supports right as the day starts? So the day starts as opposed to the kids unfortunately running around and playing outside. What would it look like if they, did a math problem to start the day every day? And like, who could help facilitate those spaces? That's an easy step for our core members. Our core members are there 35 minutes before the students get there every day. And could very easily sort of like slide in to provide that additional support in those spaces. And like, what would it look like if after lunch, we did an additional academic space? These are all of the places and spaces where we want to be a part of the process. We love to provide that academic support, especially in small group settings. And that's really sort of what it seems a lot of our schools are looking to do and provide is more small group spaces. And that's really what we aim to provide as what our core members aim to provide. And that's what they look forward to. When I ask them like, hey, what do you want to do? When you signed up to do City Year, why did you sign up to do City Year? 7 out of 10 say, because I want to work with students. And then past that, it's like, I want to do it like in a small group setting so that I can kind of like build that rapport and use some of the things that I've learned to support that. And so what it is that they're looking for and what it is we're trying to do, the alignment is very clear. It's just working through the logistics and make all those things happen.
And just to add, in the document also that I shared, the impact report, just looking at the reflections from partner teachers and principals from last year, 100% agreed that City Year AmeriCorps members help students feel a sense of belonging. Among partner teachers, 100% agree that City Year supports students' engagement and participation in school. Among partner principals, 100 agree that City Year's priorities are aligned with school priorities and that our partnership is strong. And so, again, we have the data that demonstrates that our impact, what we're doing is not just fluffy work, right? It's real and impactful, and there's data to support it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Peterson.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for being here. Nirva, you and I have talked at length about the impact of what City Year does, and I mean, you can tell right here, and the way that you talk about it, it conveys just an additional story about how important the work is. Would you be able to kind of walk us through, 500,000 is a lot of money, right? What's the impact for you currently not having that to be able to do the work that you need to continue doing?
Oh, we've had to make some cuts.
Yeah.
Cuts that range from every start of year, we do a partnership dinner. Which it might seem like, oh, this is not important, but it's so instrumental in that initial gathering with our staff as well as our partner administrators and our partner teachers. We could not do that this year. We have to, like some of our snacks, our core members, like we're laughing, it is serious. They start at 7:30 a.m. Some of them, they don't have breakfast. So some of the things that we do is make sure that our core members have snacks. Because we want to fuel them, throughout the day, because they're giving so much energy, so much of their time and their commitment. So we've been reaching out to other organizations to help us with that. But most of the impact is on our operational. Because one of the things that I promised my team was that I don't want to impact the impact team because they're the ones in the schools and that directly impacts our students as well as our core. And so I've delayed in hiring some key positions after our restructuring, including our operations positions. I'm the executive director. I'm also our operations manager. I have our operations director. I haven't done that in a long time. I like delegating. And I'm not always that good at it because things are delayed, but it's, there are things that we just can't get, basic things. I come out of my own pocket just to buy paper supplies as well as snacks for our events. And I'm in education, like our teachers and our nonprofit organizations, we are not here to make, to become rich. We're serving in these capacities because we align with the values and missions of the organization. There are other things that we just can't do. If a core member tells us that they're struggling, they have a housing crisis. In the past, one of the things we've been able to do is maybe provide them with some emergency funds. We can't do that right now, unless we come out of pocket and do it for our core member. So it's really our operational impact, just the basic things of our office that we need, we just cannot do. We've had to make some significant cuts in our spending. There are things that, you know, we would normally do for our staff, just to make sure that they're taken care of. We can't do it, and those staff members, particularly our impact team, they are in the schools as early as the core members, so they're not working a typical 40 hours a day. Their work, all of us, you know, can easily work 60, 70 hours in 1 week. And so, you know, it directly impacts our ability, to be excellent in our operational capacity, because we don't want to risk impacting the service delivery to our schools and to the students that we're serving.
I'll also add one that has been surprisingly challenging is space. So we run trainings, like I said, we run trainings, the first month is full in training. Once to twice a month, we have a training day. And the amount of time that we spend searching the city for free places, that time could be better used. Like, so the person we were just speaking to, who does the observations and coaching, a former teacher, I was with her today. We observed 3 of the 7 core members, there's 3 of the 6 core members at the school we're at. But like, what would it look like if we didn't have to spend an additional 3 hours every so often going around the city to try to find spaces that make the most sense for our young people, because we need to find one that is free or next to nothing to be able to house all of our people, that has Wi-Fi, that is accessible based on, you know, the different physical needs and limitations that some of our core members can have. And so you think through, you know, that's an additional like 40 to 45 hours over the course of the year that could be used to much better support our core members, and therefore support our students as well.
Yeah. And just to break down some of the things we provide our core members, we talked about like the benefits, the bus pass. All of our core members, they get a uniform, they get, like they have their city year shirts, and there's collar shirts, they have the t-shirts, because we also, and we give them multiple pieces, because we also don't want them having to spend money on those things, right? So that's something that's really important. All of our core members, they get their red jackets. Not only do they get these red jackets, they also get an all weather for the winter, because they're waiting out on the bus. Should be hard. You know, but there are also certain things that we just don't have the budget to provide, like gloves, like we need to rely on donations. Just last year, so every year, City Year has been partnering with Ellie's for the gingerbread house, so buy your gingerbread houses. It helps, you know, the students that we serve. But you know what we did, like some of those funds, we used them to buy supplies for the schools. We had, one of the nurses in one of our partner schools did not have undergarments if a student had an accident. Our impact team went out, bought supplies. They were like, there's pictures of them at Walmart, you know, what was it, BJ's? They're buying supplies for the classrooms, for the gym, undergarment. When they delivered those, like, something as basic, those basic needs that you and I could go to the store and purchase for ourselves, the nurse started crying. And also our core members need coats. You know, we were able to get, grocery, gift cards for them, because they also are food insecure. And so we wish we could do more for our core members, but we actually don't have the resources to do. You know, we want to make some improvements in our space to make it more, to break down some walls, to make it more open, to give our core members a more community space. We have to pause on that. Because again, we cannot do anything that will, hinder our ability to provide the quality of service that every one of our students in our schools deserve.
I think the only other thing I would add to just, so we do run events. We run events in collaboration with schools, but there are other spaces and other times we run, like this is a city or led event. And we use our budget to help pay for those events. But at this point, it's what can we in kind, what can we make with the things that we see around the office? And so the thing also becomes like, well, can we just not do it? Because we don't have the capacity, we don't have the time to go in kind and walk, you know, like that's not necessarily something that we find that we have some of the flexibility to. It was easy for me to run an additional literacy night in a school when I knew that I could go and buy $200 worth of something to help with that event. It's a lot different when I'm like calling Target to try to figure out if they can give me $25 and if Walmart can give me $25, and if Stop and Shop can give me $25, and if Whole Foods can give me $25, that becomes, again, a difficult task and something that our AmeriCorps members don't have the capacity to do because they are in school, in classroom. I think one of the things that can sometimes get lost in the shuffle is they are like really in the class the entire time. Over the course of the day, the majority of them have about 40 minutes of downtime over the course of the day. That's for their food and that's for just not sort of being with the students. And so like little things like that, we used to do like, oh, in kind, it was like a fun thing that we did. But the needs that our students have required us to be much more engaged in CPT planning spaces, in meetings with administrators, and meetings with partner teachers. And so some of the flexibility that we used to have, just based on what our students need, we don't have the capacity to do those things anymore. And again, that's where some of these like very small, big resources just add up and make things a little bit more difficult for us to provide the type of supports we like to.
As we wrap up, Councilwoman Underwood.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's been a minute. I need to see Kevin. To dig in on the funding piece, when did PPSD tell you that you wouldn't be getting funding this year? Because part of the color I'll add is, I know when Councilman Sanchez and I heard PPSD's budget, the finance committee, they didn't even mention, like, I'm so frustrated right now because like, just in general, but also they didn't even mention that this is one of the cuts they were looking at. So when we were asking them, like, how much do you need? And they were giving us like all sorts of different numbers every time we asked, and like what could get cut. This wasn't even brought up as one of the cuts. And so I'm just like so frustrated that we didn't even know that they were cutting $500,000 we were promised. So when did they tell you?
Mid-August. I have the exact date because I have the meeting date on my calendar. But it was mid-August, so it was around 2 weeks before, give or take 2 weeks before the start of the school year. And there was an RFP that was open in which we had a 2-day turnaround. So we stopped everything. Myself and, my grants person who, we don't even have like a full-time grants person. And we wrote this RFP, this pretty impactful RFP, and I hand delivered it. And then, it sounds like, they realized, the funding wasn't there to even move forward with that RFP. And so that does not give us a lot of time to even look at other funding sources, because again, a lot of those, funding is earmarked, the fiscal year prior. And so, it really puts us in a very difficult situation right now.
Yeah.
It also puts significant pressure on, what City Year has to fundraise by the end of the year, and short-staffed. But I also question, one of the things I would like to have a better understanding is what is the city's education agenda? One of the things that, the city did was made an announcement not too long ago about some funding that was allocated to an organization, which, I am sure does amazing work in the state. But when you think about what City Year has been doing for 31 years, how many organizations can say that? We're doing mentorship program, like we provide mentorship, we're providing the academic support and tutoring for the students. We're helping them grow socially and emotionally, and we're based right here in the city of Providence, and our primary constituent base is Providence Public School students. And yet, we really didn't even qualify for that particular grant, because even when the RFP came out, the way it was written, because of the structure of City Year, we could not apply for it. And so, one of the questions I have for the city itself is that if we are thinking as a community, how do we ensure that our young people can thrive? How do we make our city a thriving city with a thriving economy, with thriving communities? I would think the place that we really want to invest is in education. We've seen places that have some of the best educational districts, right? The best school districts.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have some of the top companies. They're the ones that people want to move in. They're the ones that people don't mind paying taxes because they know that those funds are going into the schools. And so if we're doing that direct work to make our schools better, to create conditions for our students to thrive while also developing leaders that can work across lines of differences, but also make real and impactful contributions in our community. What's more for us to do
Yeah.
to prove that City Year is a value add to our community and to our city?
Yeah.
And to the progress of our city.
Well said.
Just a question on that. You have
Oh,
another?
no, go for it, please.
No?
No, I'm good,
Follow?
yeah, no.
And my last question is, in terms of the state, when you go up to the State House, speak to Governor, House and Senate.
Mhm.
Have they been supported? I heard it was 130,000 only.
It's 130,000, but at the end of the day, if our
It used to
name,
be more.
I'm not sure. Since I've been there, it's been 130. Our name is City of Providence, right? And so when we go to the State House and we're talking to our
But you're in
Senate,
Kentucky, you're in Central Falls.
we are in Providence right now.
Just now, but
We have been in
historically, you've been,
We have been in Providence for almost 20 years exclusively. Yes, so No Child Left Behind started, about 17 years ago or so? So we have been in Providence, serving Providence Public Schools since then. We have not been in any other districts. Prior to that, before we implemented our whole school, whole child model, we were in Central Falls, we were in Kentucky. We were actually also going up to Newport, Woonsocket. But City Year made a commitment to the city of Providence. It was a whole initiative to serve the largest district because then Providence had some of the highest need. And so then that means, right, when we go to the State House, the argument from legislators that are not, that are outside of Providence they're going to ask us, well, how do we benefit from this? And so one of the things we also have to consider is what do we do as an organization to sustain ourselves? Do we remain as City of Providence, or do we expand our reach to other districts? But if we expand our reach to other cities and other districts, that also means that our ability to serve more schools in Providence becomes limited. Our dream, right, our vision would be to be in every single elementary school in the city of Providence and to also grow our core to follow our students into the middle school space. Pre-pandemic, our numbers were significantly higher. We would have, there was a point where we would have over 100 core members serving. The pandemic impacted us. We also have to think about the national economy. The unemployment rate is pretty low right now, but we don't know what will happen in the future. And so we need to be prepared for that. And also another area we can't invest as much in is recruitment, right? There are certain things that we have to shift some of those funds again into our impact. I hear you, but we also, there's an argument there that if you want us to invest more, then you also have to think about where else you can have an impact. And it can't just solely be Providence.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your presentation and an insightful update on City Year. I wasn't aware of a lot of the information as far as 31 years. And congratulate you on the work that you're doing, because I know stepping into a role that you get the news that your budget is being cut, you're not able to service and fulfill your mission 100%, as you say, and seek excellence among our city residents. So I know for us in this committee is to hear how we put this package together in a sense of what education is going to look like. For me personally, this has been a journey for over 35 years, 40 years, because I've lived it just like you, growing up and seeing that very few have made it up to the level that you're at. And City Year has made that commitment. We have two members here that are in the Finance Committee, and we attend the Finance Committee, and these conversation about and drilling into the budgets and numbers that's where it's going to, really make a difference, but also hear, what you just presented. And by having you here today, they bring that back to that committee, but also with the chairwoman and all of us. So thank you very much for your presentation.
May I add one more thing, Chair,
Yep.
just quickly? So, that when I started, despite those challenges, we actually doubled down. That year, we saw one of the most diverse core members that served, with majority coming from Providence. We started seeing a significant increase in our core, and I will say it's because of our impact team. We also saw just some significant impact. We also provided support to over 100 school-based events that year. That was pretty high. And we fundraised to try to meet that gap, and we actually exceeded our fundraising goals. So we doubled down. This is in addition to our own personal things that were happening. And so I say this to say that with these challenges, the thing that drives every single person, every single staff member, every single core member at City Year is one of our key core values, is service to a cause greater than self. Another value that our core, like the staff, everyone talks often about is Ubuntu. My humanity is directly tied to us. And so what drives us is that we know that the work that we're doing is to a cause greater than selves. And one of the most important equalizer is education. And if we can transform our educational system, we will continue to do this work, because at the end of the day, Kevin is a Syracuse graduate. Some of our impact managers are certified in teaching, also have amazing skills and talent. I have a graduate degree in urban education policy. We all can be in different places, but we are here because we understand the importance of the work. And our core members who are serving for $20-something thousand a year, they probably could make more money working, at a fast food restaurant or something, but they're serving because they see the importance of serving our community. And I do hope that the city and our district can see that what they're doing is important, is impactful, and will also make the commitment to invest in this work.
Thank you.
Thank you, we agree. Really appreciate your time, and we will certainly be in contact in the community. And thank you, Councilman Sarah Peterson, for bringing the organization to the table and hearing from you. Thank you. I wanted to, for the committee's next item is the discussion policy and partnership to support public communication. I just wanted to just share with you and then hear from you also on some of the things that have been going on in the education world. I know that we've been glued to our TV, but also in meetings regarding relating to the school funding. And as you know, just for the record, in the sense that just as early as of yesterday, the mayor and the president Miller had a press conference, just being in the forefront, just to see and saying how impactful this decision is going to be in the private school system and even in our city. And we heard about how difficult it's going to be for all of us at the local level, but also the fact is that we're still waiting to hear from the courts. Thank you. Still waiting to hear from the courts. Thank you. And the court has indicated to the PPSD and RIDE and our city to go and negotiate. Because we know it's going to cost us a lot of money. It's going to be part of the most difficult decisions in the near future. So as you also may know, is that the city and state are planning on meeting for negotiation on November 18th and 19th. So this is still an ongoing process of how difficult and how painful this is going to be before us as a city and also for our kids in our public school systems. So I don't know if some of you wanted to add a little bit more to that. We both sit on the finance committee, but it's okay also. This is just a general update. I know it's been a long night. But I also wanted to share and hear from you any other policies or any other organization that we should be hearing as we champion the education area. And I know it's as complicated our issue because of the funding, and it's a little depressing as we sit back home. But we must move on and move forward and be persistent on how do we get out of this, and how do we support our students, how do we support our parents. So I wanted to hear from you some of the ideas or any other suggestions. Councilwoman Anderson.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I had 3 ideas, come to mind during this, conversation today. One is more overarching. I would love to hear, have this committee have a discussion about our take back plan. I was really appreciative of Council President Miller and also the mayor, discussing the urgent need for the schools to return to city control because of the budget debacle that we're currently facing. I was just shocked to hear that Irma found out like 2 weeks before the school started. Like, that wasn't even part of the conversation in finance. Like, their budget is a mess and like, we need the schools back immediately. So having a conversation about what that take back plan looks like, maybe bringing in Courtney Hawkins or someone from the mayor's team to like have that conversation. Yeah, or Sheila
Or from the committee.
or from,
That's established
maybe
by-
that's been, talking about that, that would be really helpful. And then the 2 other, thoughts I have, one is, last year Senator Zurier, former Councilman Zurier, also did a report in the Senate, on the schools and taking them back and various models we could look at. It would be great if we could present on that. He had his full commission that I think Councilman Roya sat on for us, but, haven't him present that. And then, former Representative Marcia Rangel Bassel could be a good person to bring in. She released her book this year, Transforming Schools on a Trauma-Informed Approach to Schools and Teaching. And, you haven't read the book, it's really good. I have a copy if you want to, but, having her as a public school teacher and former legislator and book author discuss, what she's seeing in the schools, particularly post-pandemic, for their social and emotional learning and for needs and just the crazy things the kids are going through, it could be really disruptive.
Right.
Yeah, those are my 3 thoughts.
Any other?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any super clear thoughts on current events, because I know there's still pending matters that need to be resolved before we know our next move. But I think it's clear, I mean, especially after this meeting, and I've always said it about budget conversation, is that public education is the most important thing that we can invest in. And as a city that has our own financial challenges going forward, and I think this is something that hasn't been done for decades, is tough decisions to other places, and at some point, and the point is now that tough decisions are gonna have to be made to be able to fulfill this priority, and that's something that we need to start talking about now, between council colleagues.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think to your point, in my opinion, I think that we really need to start having, I think we need an overarching conversation that entails basically what take back plan is extremely important. All these things are really important, but there's a lot of external factors that go into our public school system. We have targeted conversations that need to be had. We don't necessarily know. We, as a collective, have not discussed what this looks like for the city of Providence, and we all have our own perspectives and ideas and preferences, and there's a lot there that we have not even remotely started engaging in conversation, and I think that for me is first and foremost. I think you can't lay out a map for any of this until you see what the vision for the educational plan of the cities, for the students of the city is going to be. And what that forecast looks like, whether it should include or whether it shouldn't include, and if we're going to include, a conversation around, charter schools, then I think, promoting and engaging in how they're also going to, follow the policies that we're required to as public educational servants and the things that we need to do, and how they're going to also engage their institutions to follow the models that we have, or if there's, there's just so much to be, to have the conversation around. And I think that we don't, I think we need to, start that there. The rest of it, I think obviously everything that everybody said is extremely important. But, I think there's a lot, for me, anyway, a lot of the things that a lot of my takeaways and a lot of this is, there are ways, and we need to be creative about coming up with those ways about how we discuss the per cost, the per pupil cost. And how in the city of Providence, I don't necessarily think that we are, we actually, I think it should be more, quite frankly. I think that we have, we are required to make sure that we have certain things in place for all of our children. We don't turn children away. This is actually, we believe that education is a right, and this is something that is fundamental to who we are and what we do as public school providers. But I think that we need to start advocating in ways, substantial ways, not only to our partners in the city, but also our Providence delegation and our friends at the State House to see what we can do to engage in that increasing cost, because our students require more. And I think that that's just at the very base of the things that we should be doing to provide better supports to our students and our teachers and our public school institutions.
Great, thank you.
I have one thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, two things. One is, in response to what Councilwoman Peterson has shared, which I agree with everything she said. Also, part of that conversation about the charters, I think we need to be super transparent about the budget implications of the charters and any charter expansion. Because with the money following the student, I was just talking with someone who's applying for school board, and it's like, how much money do we send to the charters? It's like $30 million a year. And just looking at the range of amounts that we could owe to the city, like, wow, what a plug to the budget that could be if we were sending that away. Private nonprofits. No shame to charters, they provide a great service, and also we just need to be really transparent and open about what the implications are for our schools and the like overhead, and then the other thing, which is a real bummer to just say out loud, but we do have a president-elect who wants to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. And so thinking about, that's gonna be wild, like what that could look like for our students, like, and just being clear-eyed and focused on what could be coming down the pipe for them. And like what will happen to special ed, to kids with special needs, like, oh, it could be right there. So, yeah, just be, yeah, that's gonna be a Debbie Downer here,
No,
but
That's a good point.
it's real.
I think I wrote down about 10 things. I need to- What's important is that at least this committee was established with the concept of that we're gonna try to address all these themes, right? Health, opportunities, and education and prosperity. Whatever that fits in, and I think all of it encompasses what we just prioritized. And I think from my conversation with you and all of our colleagues is that education is that mantle that we're championing. And for me, it's personal. It's been over 30 some years, and I'm, she just brought me back. Nerva brought me back to those years and how challenging it was growing up in the city of Providence, and I get to see it. But I'm also reminded by what the Speaker of the House said in one of the breakfasts last year. He said, if you're not at the table, you're part of the menu.
Yeah.
And I know that I've seen, right? You're part of the menu. And I've seen for all these 30 years and I've, whether it's in the community, whether it's legislatively, and now here at the table, the city of Providence has not received adequately for 3 decades the amount of money that it should have been receiving because of the fact that it hasn't prioritized it as much.
Yeah.
We've been given money trickled down, but then reality is that the city of Providence generates a lot of revenue for the state also. And proportionally, we may not be getting all that kind of money, and it's for us to prioritize education, bring people to the table, but also for us to advocate strongly for our kids. Because in this conversation, yeah, we gave a good portion of money to the charter school.
Yeah.
But those are our kids too.
Yeah.
Right, and then education, and the reality is more, the state has to, not to take away from what we have to do.
Yeah.
The state needs to step up more, and we need to advocate at that level.
I think that's, if you don't mind.
Let me just, I think that, you know, when I say that is not to say that we're blaming, you know, each other, but personally, I've seen it. I've been there. The Crowley Act is not, it was a tool to help the schools, and they did to a certain level, but it wasn't enough. The same thing, even now, we need to understand and advocate to change that. Support the bill that the mayor's putting forward for next year. Work with the province delegation. Because when we look at some of the ideas that you put forward for us to bring people to the table to understand. I mean, I'm thinking that we gotta bring in a cohort of charter school executives, or whomever, to provide that information to us, help us understand, visit those schools. The San Zurier report that it was done specifically for this from the Senate.
Yeah.
On the PPSD and its management. And just looking at how we can really champion, not just only in words, but just in action as a committee. As I said earlier, the finances and talking about how all that structure and how you guys and us will deal with it on the numbers, but on the policy end, I think that we have a tremendous opportunity, and this committee that was established in June really has that opportunity for us to really set the tone for the city council. So, thank you.
No, very well said, Chair. That's what I was gonna touch on is, we, for the sake of our kids, now need to be involved in every aspect of this issue. Not only, okay, the city needs to pay more, but we also need to be at the state, so we need to be in with community partners. We have to be involved in all aspects of our schools. Obviously, to a productive degree, we don't want to add more cooks in the kitchen, but to say, in the words of the mayor up to this point has been very good. He was on a radio yesterday talking about these aren't our schools, and yeah, the state might be in control of running our schools, but then there's still our schools and our community kids who are like, they're very much our schools, and we need to remember that and understand this moment is pretty difficult for many different reasons, but we need to understand what we have in front of us and start moving in a more productive direction for the sake of our kids in the city and families.
Absolutely. So, anything else on that? Yeah, it is. All right. I know it's already time. That is the end of our agenda. We will look to see when will be our next meeting and what out of the 10 things, what we're going to cover. But also keep in mind that we may also do a joint meeting with the newly elected board of the PPSD in the near future, in the new year. But in the meantime, let's keep digging in and bringing in and looking at some of the external partners that we can bring in to help our schools, to help our kids, so thank you. Any further business? The motion to adjourn?
So.
So it's been moved and second, all those in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.